Hello everyone and welcome back to a brand new video here at tablemon. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're gonna be continuing with our post-rotation coverage, and today we're going to be taking a look at the different Raging Bolt EX decks that have been popping up over in Japan and doing well, with the first one being the easiest, if you will, in terms of like the easiest to set up, the most straightforward out of all of them, playing with Raging Bolt EX, allowing you to do a lot of damage, ideally early on. With your climatic descent, you're able to discard any amount of basic energy from any of your Pokemon in play, and this attack does 70 damage for each card you discarded in this way. Now, why is this good? Of course, any amount of unlimited damage will always be a good card, right? And this pairs really well with the Professor Sada's Vitality, which allows you to attach 2 energies from your discard pile to your ancient Pokemon and draw 3 cards. So you have that very nice engine providing you the damage and also the energy acceleration and also draw power, which is fantastic. And then that's for the beginning, right? That is definitely for the beginning. And then afterwards, after we are done, or after our opponent has taken a few prizes, then the Sandy Shocks EX becomes available as an attacker and as a way to replenish our energy in order to deal more damage. The ability Magnetic Absorption. Once during your turn, if your opponent has 4 or fewer prize cards remaining, you may attach a basic fighting energy card from your discard pile to this Pokemon. So you have multiple Sandy Shocks EX. They are self-sustaining in that they power themselves up, so you just need to find the Professor Sada to power up the Raging Bolt in order to keep attacking, right? So very nice. You only need to find the lightning energy as well for the Raging Bolts. Maybe this deck could benefit from a couple energy switches. Some of the other versions that we're going to take a look at today do have that available to transfer the energy to Raging Bolt and keep attacking. And now, another important thing to highlight is Raging Bolt does have 240 HP, so it is a basic Pokemon that has 240 HP. That alone itself means it's out of range of any Pokemon that might be targeting the 230 range, such as, for example, a Charizard EX with a maximum belt attached to it. That is 230 damage before you've taken any prize cards, but you are just out of range of that first attack by Charizard EX, and that could potentially be how you end up winning the game. So that huge neck that Raging Bolt has probably pairs with that huge HP and allows it to be that much powerful. And then we have the brand new Koraidon, the basic Koraidon with the attack Primeval Battering, doing 30 damage for each of your ancient Pokemon in play. Now, of course, you're gonna end up having Mew EX or Squawkabilly or Radiant Greninja in order to help sustain your deck and your draw power. However, dishing 120 to 150 damage with a single prize Pokemon will always be a welcome addition, easily powered up by the Professor Sada's ability, which is fantastic, Vitality, which is fantastic, and you get that single prizer that can potentially play around with the prize setup for your opponent. And no fire energy to utilize Shred. I think that's fine. You probably don't need a reliable Shred effect to bypass anything, and the single prizer Koraidon itself is a way to bypass something like Mimikyu EX, or Mimikyu, the basic Pokemon with the safeguard ability. So you should be perfectly fine in that regard. Now, with the Ancient Booster Energy Capsule, all these 3 Pokemon, whether it's the Sandy Shocks, the Raging Bolt, or the Koraidon, do become even tankier, right? Which is fantastic. And being able to have a 300 HP basic Pokemon, that's more HP than Arceus vstar, Giratina vstar. So definitely very powerful with the Ancient Booster Energy Capsule. I think that really adds another layer to the deck to make these Pokemon very powerful. And then I really like the engine of this deck, really trying to maximize the draw power and going through the deck to find and hit those Sadas. We have 4 Poke Gear. We'll also have 4 Trekking Shoes. We have 4 Earthen Vessel to just thin those energies, make sure we're attaching energy and make sure we're discarding energy to be able to use Sandy Shocks and use Professor Sada every single time for the most for the for the double attachment, and also making sure we're replenishing energy immediately so that we can overwhelm our opponent. For Nest Ball, to just make sure we set up all our Pokemon. Copy of Lost Vacuum to get rid of maximum belts or get rid of hero capes. Our A-spec of choice is the Prime Catcher. The Prime Catcher allows us to have that free gusting effect on the same turn that we are using Professor Sada's Vitality, which I think is pretty important. We also have Town Store as a way to find those ancient booster energy capsules and be able to increase the HP of our Pokemon, which is very important. Then we have Palkia, as we will be discarding a lot of stuff between the Ultra Ball, the Earthen Vessel, the Squawk, and the Trekking Shoes. So Palkia to be able to recover either Boss's Orders or Iono to disrupt, or even Professor Sada's. So we are able to use Professor Sada over and over and over, will be pretty crucial. And then a 7-3 energy split, that's the part where I'm a little iffy on. Perhaps you only need one Lightning, and you'll keep recovering with Professor Sada, so maybe that's fine. You shouldn't have any pricing issues, but maybe there's a little bit of merit to playing a 6-4 split. Yeah, because 6 fighting energy should also definitely be more than enough to make sure that the Sandy Shocks are continually recovering energy overall. So I would like, maybe 6-4 is probably a more balanced way to go about this. And now the next potentially viable way to play Raging Bolt has been with Palkia vstar. Now this deck definitely reminds me of the Goldengo EX with Palkia vstar pairing. On paper they don't seem to have a lot in common, but the attack cost for Goldengo EX is so permissible that you can run Palkia vstar with it, and turns out that was the best version of it. And Raging Bolt EX could be the same case. Yeah, we have Palkia vstar with the Star Portal ability, getting 3 energies immediately into play, 3 water energies to your water Pokemon. Can be itself, can be Greninja, and that opens up the Moonlight Shuriken attack as well, which is fantastic. And then you also have Palkia vstar's attack to just start pummeling your opponent very directly and very easily, which I also really like as a way to lead, right? Take those early knockouts on the little things perhaps, and then save Raging Bolt for the big high HP Pokemon that Palkia of course cannot do so. Now it does have 3 different types of basic energies, but with 4 Earthen Vessel that should never honestly be any sort of issue. Aside from that, the rest of the deck is very similar, is not relying on Trekking Shoes, it's relying more on like a more stable setup of supporters, not just the Professor Sada, but also Professor's Research, an extra Iono, and then a copy of Irida. Still has the high count of Pokegear, which is fantastic. No Mew or Squawk to help sustain the deck either, so relying more on Professor's Research, as I mentioned. And also that this does mean like you need a more stable setup in the beginning. You need to establish your Palkias. The 3-3 Palkia line also seems a little excessive, as I do want to mention once again, I'm presenting this list not having used them myself, right? This is all Theorymon, and this is just someone won a decent enough tournament in Japan to where their list got published. Yeah, and I'm just taking a look at the more interesting or important ideas that I'm finding that I will use then to incorporate in my testing that I will begin very soon with the new cards and with the new set. And this was one of the concepts that I really liked. The whole synergy between Palkia and Raging Bolt is not immediately apparent because of the differing energy costs, but opening up the possibility to attack with Greninja gives the deck a different dimension as well, which is very important. You have the big one-shots such as Goldengo, and then you have the bench pressure such as Greninja's Moonlight Shuriken. So I think that's really, really key. We also have the same A-spec of choice, the Prime Catcher. I think that's going to be for sure the A-spec of choice for these sort of decks, which try to be aggressive and take down your opponent's threat. No need to tank hits as much as or increase your damage. You have unlimited damage rather, and you can tank hits with Ancient Booster Energy Capsule already. So Prime Catcher definitely the A-spec of choice for these sort of decks. And then we have one more version that I wanted to showcase and talk about, and that is Raging Bolt EX with Gardevoir EX. Now once again, there doesn't seem to be a lot of synergy between the two cards, and that's completely understandable. This is also my least favorite version of the deck. Feels a little convoluted, feels a little all over the place. It's not a Gardevoir deck, it's not a full Raging Bolt deck, it's like somewhere in between. But Gardevoir EX's Psychic Embrace ability can get any amount of energies, any amount of Psychic energies in play into any of your Psychic Pokemon, correct? And then you have Raging Bolt EX, which doesn't care what type the energy is. You just discard them. So it definitely reminds me a lot of the Rayquaza Amazing Rare, which of course you all know I really love the card. So very excited about Raging Bolt because it reminds me of that Amazing Rare Rayquaza. Whether the format will be good enough for it, that's a whole other question, but this is the new or the final version that I've seen has actually appeared more than once over in Japan, has been doing decently, and of course there doesn't seem to be a lot of synergy between the two cards initially, but as long as you're powering up energies on the bench with your Gardevoir EX, and then you have the incredible self-sustaining refinement engine, that should be the other routes, by the way, the 70 HP one, but you have refinement, right, which is always going to be a very strong engine. You also have the body catch Gallade to be able to directly search for the Professor Silence Vitality to make sure that you are always hitting the right energies onto Raging Bolt, which is fantastic, right? So I think this feels a little all over the place, yeah, because the body puffins can't search for your main attacker, but they do help you set up. It also is pretty nice that you don't become a 2-prize deck until you choose to be, which seems pretty cool. The 4 Raging Bolt in this list seems a little excessive. I think you would definitely get away with 3, especially with double Super Rods. Assume you end up attacking 3 times with it. And then you also have the Scream Tail, yeah, giving the deck another dimension, and that's, I think, important, and the difference between this version and the Palkia version with the initial version, which is definitely more streamlined and more straightforward, and sometimes that's better. Yeah, we've seen that happen in today's format with Roaring Moon EX. We were seeing Roaring Moon EX incorporate Greninja, and some lists even incorporate Greninja and Iron Hands EX. But what was the most successful version in the end? The more straightforward version. So perhaps the Palkia version feels somewhere in between. This feels incredibly like all over the place, but it has some merit, right? So I don't want to discard it before actually playing some games with it. But overall, the first 2 versions are definitely my favorite versions. But I did want to talk about these versions that we are seeing coming from Japan, because I'm sure there will be someone that will look at this and will be like, wow, this is my favorite Raging Bolt EX version of the deck. This is the one that I want to play, and they will go ahead and do it. Yeah, so important to talk about all the different options. Now, in terms of this specific deck, once again, Prime Catcher, the ace pick of choice, has the option to TM Devolution as well, which seems interesting and a different defensive way to take down your opponent's Pokemon. Copy of Town Store, copy of Moonlit Heal to potentially heal the damage that Gardevoir is placing on your Pokemon. Probably very important, as there's no way to heal them, right? The energies will getting discarded, and then you will have to replenish them, and you will be damaging yourself once again. So perhaps healing that 30 damage could be significant in some situations, and then this version will definitely be the best version to utilize Iono, because you have the self-sustaining refinement engine, and then a 300 HP basic Pokemon is not exactly easy to take down. So if you can just discard Psychic Energies and you don't need to discard either the Lightning or the Fighting, then that gives you a little bit of wiggle room to where you don't need to use Professor Silence Vitality each turn to be able to replenish and attack with your next Raging Bolt. So let me know what you think about these 3 versions of the deck. Definitely going to try and include more versions of each deck, so expect an updated future box showcasing the different options that we are seeing in Japan, but hopefully probably in a week or 2, as the best versions end up coming out on top and they get a little bit more streamlined. Yeah, otherwise I was making a video talking about 10 different future box decks, and I don't think that's too useful. Yeah, but once we see the top 2 or 3 variants that are continually doing well and they are more refined, I think that's going to have a lot of value. So thanks so much for tuning in. Hope you're enjoying this coverage. The views have definitely been a lot lower the last few weeks in the videos. I don't know what's going on. Hopefully I'm producing good enough content, and I will be making more video essays, which people seem to love. I'm just trying to balance everything, because January there was also, I got really sick one week, and then there were 2 of the weekends I was away traveling for tournaments, and then Knoxville also start of February with travel, and then traveling next week, so a lot of travel. But hopefully a lot of good content coming your way as well. Thanks so much, and as always, any feedback you have or any suggestions for future decks to cover, let me know, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.